Hello everyone, thank you for joining our Quick Panel webinar. Today we're going to show you a new feature that's coming out for AccuTrack and AccuSQL 2015. The Quick Panel is designed for advisors, tutors, or staff members to have easy and quick access to everything they use in AccuTrack or AccuSQL on a daily basis. So we're going to take you through installation of the Quick Panel, show you the major features, and then actually show you from start to finish how a student would be passed through the process being used Quick Panel from an advisor's station. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is install the Quick Panel, and I have a setup for that right here. And I'll click Next, Next again, read the license agreement, and agree. And I can put my user or organization if I'd like. And I would accept just the default path here and install for anyone. And while we're waiting, I just want to mention the Quick Panel uses your existing AccuTrack or AccuSQL database. You would tell the Quick Panel which database you'd like it to use. Typically you'll install it on the advisor's workstations or tutor's workstations, and then they will access the Quick Panel from their office. Okay, also briefly, a lot of the setup for the Quick Panel is used in AccuTrack or AccuSQL. So you would use either of those products to set up the rules for how the Quick Panel will operate. Okay, now I've got the Quick Panel installed, but what I'd like to do next is tell it which database I want it to use. Also, you'll see I have a shortcut to the Quick Panel on my desktop right here. So I'm going to right-click on that and then do Open File Location. Okay, and in the folder where the Quick Panel is installed, I've got a program here that's called Set Data Path. Okay, so I'm going to run that, and that's how I set the path to my database. Okay, now if you're using AccuTrack, you would be using native mode, and you would point it to a folder typically shared out on the network or a path to that folder where your database lives on the network. So it could be / / my server name / AccuTrack or whatever that may be, or it could be even a mapped drive. So z : /AccuFiles / AccuData. That's completely up to your college how that would be set up. But if you're not sure about that, you could certainly contact your IT and they could provide that for you. Also, if you're running AccuTrack on another station, you can go log in, look at the database location, and merely copy and paste it into here, and you would be using the same database that that particular station is using. Okay, now I'm using SQL Server for this example, so I'm going to pick that version. Okay, and now I'm going to put in the path to my server, my SQL server in this case, and I'll test to make sure that that's happy, and it is. Okay, and then I'll click the drop-down database, and it's going to show me a list of my databases out in that SQL server. So I'm going to pick the one I want to use, and it may take a few seconds for that to populate. Okay, now I'm done almost, but I want to talk a little bit about this application shared path. Okay, now the application shared path is a public share typically, or a share that everyone logging into AccuTrack or AccuSQL will have access to. And that's an important folder because we store a lot of different things out in that shared folder, including settings that control how the intake system works in AccuTrack, student photos, shared reports, and many other things. So I recommend if you don't have that, you want to create a share out on the network and point your AccuTrack or AccuSQL stations to it. Okay, now in this case, I've got a Z drive out there on my network, and I have a folder called AccuFiles. So that's what I'm going to set my shared path to. Okay, once I got all that right, I'll click Save, and my connection information is saved, and now I can merely X out and close the Set Data Path. Okay. Okay, so once I've done that, now I have my AccuSQL Quick Panel pointing to the database that I want. And now I'm ready to log in for the first time with my Quick Panel. Before I do that, though, I'd like to turn it over to Nick, who's going to talk about how we set up the different access groups and access information for the tutors or advisors that will be accessing the quick panel. So here's Nick.
All right, thanks, Dave. And here we're going to go ahead and go back into AccuSQL so that we can set the access group and what levels the tutors and advisors will have access to. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make everything available for them on the quick panel. So I'm just going to log in as an admin here. All right, and when I'm logged in as an admin, over on the right side I have System Access, and I'm going to go to System Access Groups. So we have a few defaulted in here, but there's also a few custom. We're going to focus on the tutors group here. That's your advisors or tutors, and we're going to edit that. So, going through this list, I want to make sure that I have students available so they can edit students. I want to go through and make sure that they can register students for classes. So we're going to add that. If it's not already checked, you just put a check in it. All right, we're going to go through, and on the students visits tracking section, we're going to give them the ability to edit logs, sign in, sign out people, see who's in. Okay, and the next section we're going to go to is set appointments. We want to make sure they have access to either the quick scheduler or appointment wizard, whichever you guys use. All right, further down in session logs, we want to make sure that they have access to at least the session log. Then in communications, they want to have access to Messaging Center so they can email or send messages via text message or SMS to people. And the next section down is going to be our seminars. And you want to at least have them access to seminar status. That way they can add a student to a seminar or remove them from a seminar. The final section here is going to be reports, and you want them to be able to access reports from the quick panel, so you're going to add that on there. Finally, we're going to go ahead and save that, and you can just close to exit out of there. Now, we just gave tutors access to reports. Well, what reports do we want them to have access to? If we click on Reports Access here on the System Admin screen, in there we'll have a detailed list of all the different reports that they can access. And the tutors group in there should have the default set in there, but we can go ahead and edit that. So maybe I'd like my tutors to also have access to seminar reports, so I just check that section. Whatever it is that I want them to have access to. Maybe I want them to be able to check people's media, what they have, so you can customize it however you want that, and just save that. Once again, it's the tutors group there. Okay, let's say you haven't allowed people to sign into your quick panel. You can actually reset the tutors passwords here under reset student passwords. So right here I'm going to go ahead and check the advisors or tutors, whatever the label you guys came up with, and I'm going to reset it to either the ID value or their lowercase last name. In this case we're going to use ID value. Okay, and I can see that it's reset 27 tutors, which are all my tutors that I have. And we're going to go ahead and hand it over to Laura here to actually show you the quick panel. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of AccuSQL here.
Hi, my name is Laura, and I'm a software consultant here at Enginerica Systems. And this is very exciting to show you our new quick panel. So now that Dave and Nick have set it all up, we can simply open the quick panel. Okay, so I'm going to log in as a tutor or advisor. We use that word interchangeably. The quick panel is actually designed more for student support type personnel like counselors, advisors, or TRIO staff. So here's the quick panel. Let me show you a few of the important features. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you can see a panel for students in line. This is if your department or center is using the intake system. Students who are waiting in line would show here. Once the students are actually signed in with the counselor or advisor, by the way, this is signed in as Cindy Bright, so we would be looking at students who are signed in or waiting for her. This is where you'd see your students signed in, and then in the middle of the panel is where once you've clicked on a student that's signed in or in line, would show you all of their session logs and give you some more options to work with that student. So this is a wonderful panel with everything in one spot for you to handle the students as they are waiting, as they're coming in, and as they're working with you, and then on their way out. So now I'm going to hand it over to David, who will set up the intake system for us.
Okay, thank you, Laura. So what I'm going to do is turn on the intake system so students will be waiting to be called from the advisor once they're ready to be seen. Okay, and I'll go ahead and close the quick panel. We're going to set up the intake system again in AccuSQL in this case. Remember, the settings are controlled in AccuSQL primarily for the quick panel. And I'll log in as an administrator. Now, before I get to the intake system, I just wanted to briefly mention that you might have seen the session questionnaire button on that quick panel screen. Laura was talking about the session log. You can also have advisors answer session questionnaires about their experiences with the student. Okay, now you need to set that up in order for it to work. Okay, and I'm going to go to session log and then click right here. I have session questionnaire set up. Okay, now I've already entered the questions that we're going to use in this example, but here's where you would add the questions and then the answers that you would like to be available for each question. Okay, you can also make them weighted. I just want you to understand where that session questionnaire is located. Okay, going back to the topic here at hand, we're talking about turning the intake system on. So I've clicked on Sign in Setup, and now I'm going to click Setup. Okay, and in this screen I have something called Waiting Options. Okay, so right here I have one checkbox that says Turn or Intake System is on. So I'm clicking that to turn the intake system on. Okay, now I'll return to my sign-in screen, and I'm going to sign some students in to AccuSQL in order to put them in the intake system. Now, you can manually sign students in from the quick panel, but typically you're going to see those students as they've signed into the front of the center and they're waiting to see you. Okay, so I'll go ahead and swipe a few here. Here comes the first student, and it looks like he has a late college algebra book. But let's say he wants to come in for academic coaching, or she, I guess, excuse me, Michelle D. is coming in for academic coaching with Cindy Bright. Okay, so I'll sign in. And now it says, Michelle D., you are in line. Please remain in the area until your name is called. Here comes the next one. Okay, and David Arlington is coming in for a graduation meeting, let's say. And let's pick Cindy again. And now David is in line. Here comes another one. Okay, so Charles Norris is coming in for personal counseling, let's say. And we'll pick Morgan Freeman this time. And now Charles is in line, and we'll do one more. Okay, Tammy Smiths is coming in for, let's say, career counseling. You probably hear that beeping going on. I'm using a magnetic stripe reader. If you guys don't have one of those, I would highly recommend it. It makes it much, much easier and more accurate for a student to sign in. Okay, and I'll put that person in with Cindy as well. Okay, so I have 4 people now waiting, 3 of them waiting for Cindy Bright, and 1 of them waiting for Morgan Freeman. So what I thought we'd do at this point is turn it back over to Laura, and she's going to actually show us from start to finish how we can work that work that student through the process in the quick panel.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So let's open our quick panel and look at where these students are. I'm going to log in as Cindy Bright. Okay. So now we have 3 students in line waiting for Cindy Bright. On this panel, it not only shows who's waiting, but how long they've been waiting and what they're waiting for. So if Cindy's ready to see this student, she can simply click on them and sign them in. Now they'll appear over here in the student signed in line. If she clicks on the student, double clicks here, now she can see the student's logs down here in the main panel. This is very helpful for a tutor or counselor because they can start looking through the different logs before meeting with the student to see what was going on beforehand. Use your regular session log filters that are at the bottom to make it a little easier. So for example, I can sort this for showing only those with comments. I can see that Tammy was preparing for an important exam last time she was in, so now maybe Cindy Bright will be counseling her about how well she did on that exam. At this point, Cindy Bright could go ahead and make any changes and edits to the past logs for the student, which would include adding and editing the session logs, deleting the session logs, or in some cases emailing or printing the session logs. Also, there is a session questionnaire button. This is a good time to go ahead and fill out the session log questionnaire if that's set up on the student that you're working with. Make sure you've done that and any session log changes that you'd like to do to the student before you sign them out. But now if you're done working with the student, you would simply come back up to the student signed in panel and sign them out. Now Cindy's ready for her next student. Sometimes the students don't sign themselves in correctly with their assigned advisor or tutor, so she may need to see all of the students that are waiting. So for example, maybe Michelle D was waiting for Cindy, and she can now sign that student in with her. Double-clicking on Michelle D will populate all of her session logs in the bottom, and now Cindy Bright can work with this student and use the session logs and session questionnaires available for that student. Now sometimes we get into a little bit of a hurry and we accidentally sign the student out before we finish the logs. The quick panel will leave the student here even though they're signed out as long as you don't touch any of the other panels. But let's say you did accidentally click out and now you're not able to add the session questionnaire or session logs or edit or do any of these other things with the student. Down at the bottom you could just use the admin button and come back to your session log and work with that student. Here you can make all the changes that you needed. Okay, so let's go back to the quick panel. Now Cindy can look at how long these students have been waiting, which we now see the time has increased, and move on to the next student. Sometimes if the student's been waiting long, you may want to send them a text and let them know that you're ready. Or if the student is going to make a time to meet with you at a different time, you can remove them from that line. For now, we'll just sign in Mr. Norris, work with the session logs at the bottom, and then of course you can sign the student out. Now Nick's going to show you how to use this menu off to the right side, working with the session logs on the student.
All right, thanks, Laura. All right, one thing you'll notice, when you click on the student, or double click on them, they show up down here, and this entire area applies to just that one student. And these right side options that we have, every time I click on one of those, it's only doing it for that student there. So for instance, let's say I'm meeting with David Arlington, so I sign him in. Alright, so he gets signed in, and while I'm working with him, he mentions to me that he was having trouble registering for a class. So we could go ahead and register him for that class here in the system. Alright, so I just click on the title here, look for what it is. So Art History and Appreciation. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK, and he's registered. Also, if there's any seminars that he'd like to sign up for, we could sign him up for a seminar at this time as well. Here we have an entire list of the seminars, how many seats are available, and at this point, if he's already registered, I could drop him from a session or a seminar, or register him for the seminar if he hasn't signed up for it yet. I can also create an appointment for the student, and this is going to just pull up the appointment wizard or quick scheduler, depending on whichever you've chosen, and you just go through and set them up an appointment. Also, let's say I just finished up the session and I still had him pulled up and I needed to send him a note real quick. I could also send him a message, and I could either use email or text messaging, fill it out, and send that off. I can also edit their sign-in logs, and what that means is, here I can edit anything as far as session notes or the questionnaire about the student, but the edit session log, I can click there, and let's say one of these are wrong. This day he was only there for an hour. I can go ahead and click on it, click edit log, and I can actually edit the time. Go ahead and save that, and we're done. Alright, now these next 6 buttons, they're all views. So, I can easily, while I'm working with them, view what appointments he has scheduled with me in the center, with others as well. Same with registration. So here's all their registration, and you can also see the art history and appreciation we have here. I can see all their visits that they've had at the centers. Now, if at any time on any of these views I want to, print this information out, I can just hold down Control P, and I'll get the print menu, and I just select my printer and go ahead and send it to the printer. Alternatively, if I just want these session logs here, I can right click on them and either get a report or export them out to Excel. So you can see here's all their information. Alright, the other things I could do is view all the advisors that they've met with in the past, each with the category and the activity they've selected. I can also view what groups they belong to. Maybe they're part of an at-risk or basketball team, softball team, things like that. And then finally I can view what seminars they're signed up for, or the ones that they've attended in the past. Alright, so that's pretty much it. I think we're going to hand this back over to Laura. She's going to discuss these admin options at the bottom.
Okay, so everything in the quick panel isn't completely about the student because we provided some options at the bottom of the panel for the tutor or advisor. So starting with admin, which we've already seen, there are times that your advisor may need to jump out to the admin to change things like session logs and things like we said before if the student had already logged out. They can also use reports. These will be the reports that they have access to that we set previously in AccuTrack. They can also see their own schedule and make any necessary changes. They can use the Appointment Central, which has everything you need about appointments, to change students or add students. There's a monthly viewer and a daily viewer for those appointments for this tutor or advisor. They can also change their password. And lastly, they can log in. So let's take a minute to explain why the login button is here. There are times that your advisors or tutors will want to work in the Quick Panel, making adjustments to their schedule or looking up their schedules when they're not really on the clock, or in some cases your centers may not want them to be shown as available to the students. So we've put this here so that when they're ready to be available, they can simply log in, and then later, when they're finished, they can log out. And that's it. Now David's going to tell you a few more things about how to get help with the Quick Panel.
Okay, thank you, Laura. And as you notice, it took a minute there for the logout button to appear. There's a lot of refreshing and various things going on behind the scenes here in the program. So you may see times where maybe it takes a minute to refresh a log, etc. So we've got different things running on timers. So if you wait for it, it'll either light up a sign-in button or a logout button, etc. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and log out. And one thing I want to mention before I show you where to get help here is Nick was nice enough to show us the access group for the tutors that enables all of these various buttons. But I just want to mention you don't necessarily have to give advisors or tutors access to every button. We lit everything up to show you how it all works, but you can pick and choose which items the advisors can actually get to. Okay, and the other thing about access groups is you might have noticed Laura clicked the admin button and she went into a view of the back end of the screen here where she could set up information. So she did that as an advisor, which is part of the tutors access group. So when she clicks admin, the menu items that I give her here are the ones that she's going to be able to see, or any advisor would be able to see. Okay, so think of it as the access group controls what they can get to in the Quick Panel. The access group also controls what they can get to in AccuTrack or AccuSQL itself. Okay? All right, and we're pretty excited about the Quick Panel. We hope you are. I think it's got a lot of great features, and we worked hard on this, so we really hope you'll enjoy it. Now, I've opened up the website here, and I want to show you, I've got some manuals. This is a work in progress, the Quick Panel User Manual, but we have that in PDF format. Okay, so for AccuTrack, you're going to go to www.engineerica.com/AccuTrack/docs, and you can see I have the Quick Panel Users Manual, so I would suggest you take a look at that. Now, we also talked about setup in AccuTrack or AccuSQL. So that being the case, I would recommend, if you want to learn more about that, we have a quick start manual and a reference manual for AccuTrack. So this is more information than you're probably ever going to want. Okay, that's for AccuTrack, but if I click over here, I have the same set of manuals for AccuSQL. So the AccuSQL Quick Start Reference Manual and the Quick Panel User Manual for AccuSQL. Okay, so you can just click and save those PDF documents, and you've got lots of good reading material there. Okay, and finally, if you have any questions about the Quick Panel, again, it's formally going to be released for version 2015, which typically comes out in maybe September or October of the year before. So 2015 would come out in October or so of 2014. You can certainly contact us here. It's support@accutrack.org. And you can ask for David, Nick, or Laura, and we'd be more than happy to show you more about the Quick Panel. We're even taking beta testers now for the Quick Panel. So if you'd like to get your hands on it and try it out yourself, please contact us, and we'd be happy to help you do that. Okay, and we thank you all for your attention. Take care.